Hello, my name is Miles, and I'm your host of Stop Stigma, Start Healing, the raw and uncensored podcast where we talk openly and unapologetically about our lives as trans, lesbian, bi, gay, queer, and HIV positive humans. Our goal is to stop the stigma that prevents us from getting the health care we deserve. Each episode, we're going to feature real people in our community and storytelling and conversation. These are real people. I'm motioning to you all as the real people. Our disclaimer is the experiences shared here are valuable and important. They are based on the lives of those in this space and some of you who are listening. Prepare to be educated, shocked, seen, triggered, and informed. No matter your response, keep the conversation going. Start healing. So welcome to the next episode of Stop Stigma, Start Healing. We are calling this episode, I think we all have decided, Queerdos. So I'd like to first go around and have our guests introduce themselves and give us some basic information about who they are before we start in on the questions. And I'm looking over here, so ladies first.
Yeah, so my name is Kelly. I am a case manager, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I also have a side gig selling records. I'm a big music nerd, and that's about it.
Perfect. Thank you, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Christopher. I like to be called Cubby. My pronouns are he, him, his. I'm a 51-year-old Hispanic native of Texas that moved to Ohio a year ago next Thursday. So this has been a great honor to have been asked to be here today. So I'm looking forward to this.
And I'm glad to see that you have registered to vote and you've already voted today, early voting. So yeah.
Amazingly, when we got there, the line was kind of wrapped around the building. I said, oh, that's going to take forever. It was literally 20 minutes in and out.
Very good. And last but not least, here to my left.
I'm Alex, pronouns he, him, his. I am a blind trans man, and we have a 2-month-old at the house. So I'm a new proud daddy, and that's just a little about me for now.
Very good. So welcome, and thank you all three for coming here. So as I mentioned, the episode is called Queerdos. So folks at home listening are probably wondering what the heck we're going to get into. And when we use that word, first of all, it's a sort of an opportunity to reclaim a word that maybe many of us were called a version of, that queer we're called as kids growing up as a way to make us feel bad about ourselves or feel othered. And we have reclaimed that word and have put a little spin on it to make it even more amazing for us. In preparing for tonight's episode, I actually did some little research online, and actually just a little, because every single poll I looked at had different numbers. So I'm going to share these numbers, and I realize that there are probably opportunities to dispute these and to dispute the source. But these figures come from Gallup, and these are Americans who self-identify in 2022 as being what we're calling queers, but it being in the LGBTQ community. So of the Gen Z population, 20.8% of the Gen Z population identifies as being in the community. 3.5 didn't answer the question. So we think that number could potentially go up. Millennials, 10.5%. Interestingly, 7.1% of millennials wouldn't answer the question. The rest all said they were straight. Generation X, 4.2%. Somehow something happened with that generation. 6.5% of those Gen Xers wouldn't answer the question. Baby boomers, 2.6% of baby boomers identify in the community. 6.8 didn't answer the question. And then the generation they call traditionalists, which is prior to baby boomers, 0.8% identify as part of the community. So smaller number, but these are folks who are pretty far up there. 7.1 of the folks didn't answer the question.
Interesting.
Yeah. So there's you can look at other polls and find out. I think being a part of the community, we often use the 10% as sort of an average. Like we think we are 10% of the larger population. However, I think those numbers have not necessarily represented the entire umbrella of the LGBTQ community. I think historically those have been L's and G's and not often T's, or people who identify as queer, or some of the other identifications in our community. So you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I feel like the numbers are naturally skewed because of stigma. And
People are
that's
afraid to respond to those questions because the hate that you're gonna get. Just like when my husband left me here today, I kind of got a little nervous waiting on the sidewalk because someone yelled out, "Oh, you f the nasty word," and I was like, "Oh," I was like, I saw my husband drive off, and I was like, "Okay, they'll be here in a minute, and I'll be okay." So yeah, for some, it's just that thought of, do I put myself out there and do I want that hate to come back on me?
Sure.
I think that's like, even with those numbers, it's very viewable there that like the older, like the further back you go, the more stigma there is with those communities. So like, and I definitely see it with the Gen Z
for them to
population.
come out back then as compared to so many things have changed in life today that it's a little easier for some of our younger LGBT family to come out versus 51 years ago for people coming out when I was born. I'm sure they didn't just say, "Oh, hey, I'm here," because back then you just didn't do stuff like that.
Right. And there was no representation or media there.
You didn't know who to really believe and who to trust. So yeah.
So let me take it one step further. So of the LGBTQ, using their words, U.S. adults, 13.9% identify as lesbian, 20.7% identify as gay, 56.8% identify as bisexual, 10% identify as trans or transgender, and 4.3% identify as other or gender or same gender loving. So I think those are just interesting numbers. I don't know, maybe not that interesting, but someone calls you on the telephone and starts asking you a bunch of questions, I might get suspicious. So,
yeah, especially if they're strangers.
Yeah,
for sure.
So if we could go around the room, and we'll start here to my left, Alex, I'll have you go first. Tell the folks listening at home about your coming out story.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a joke. Which one?
Yeah,
okay,
well, all of them, but we have an hour. So.
I'll try to dumb it all down. So when I was a kiddo.
Not a queerdo, but a kiddo.
Yeah, okay, a queer kiddo, okay. We'll say. When I started to kind of hit puberty, I was like, I think I like girls and all this. And so one day I decided to, tell my mom about this. This is kind of a short version. I told my mom about it. She freaked out, and that didn't go so well. And the next day she was like, "Oh, well, it's okay, as long as you don't act on it," basically. So my family was really religious, and I have a lot of religious trauma sorting that. So then that happened. And then eventually over time, going through high school, I had boyfriends, some of which may have been a cover up, some, not so much, just kind of still trying to figure everything out. Eventually I discovered that I'm actually pansexual. That took years, but figuring that out. And then in 2016, I went to a trans support group with a friend of mine. And I was like, well, maybe I'm not quite a girl either. Fuck. So, that happened, and first identified as gender fluid. It was like this kind of switch in my brain I felt would kind of flip. That's the best way to describe it for myself. So that happened, and eventually figured out in 2019. I'm a guy. I'm a trans guy. So, and then, at that point started taking steps to, medically transition. I was binding in 2019, got top surgery, I started testosterone in 2020. In 2021, had top surgery, and then this past year had a hysterectomy. So that is that.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you. That wasn't super long.
I was trying to make
yeah.
sure I didn't. I was like, I only got like a few minutes. Crap.
Yeah. Cubby, how about you?
Let's see. My coming out story was wasn't as difficult as some people's. I mean, I have an older brother that I lost 30 years ago, and growing up, my mom would when it was right after high school. I played the whole entire straight thing until high school. I graduated, and I was like, yeah, this isn't for me. Then somehow or another, I had a friend that said, let's go to the bar, and took me out to Heaven in Houston, Texas, and that's where it all started. And I would literally go out to the bar, come home kind of cocktailed, and my mom's like, you can't be doing all that stuff because you know that you can get sick, and I don't want to lose you, and So I still went out, and I lost my brother 30 years ago to HIV. And then the very next year, I tested positive. And I've had my mom and dad's support 100% all the way through life up until I got married. We got her, and even then, we still had the support of them. Then we got our names legally changed to our married name, and then right at that point, they stopped talking to us, which just kind of really hurt because I've literally helped so many other friends kind of help get through that beginning stage, scared, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I've helped them, and then I've never knew what it felt like to be kind of kicked out up until 2 years ago when we got our names changed. And I literally asked him, I said, what is the deal? Why are y'all not talking? Well, we just don't need to talk about it. And it's like, okay, well, whatever. They didn't come to the wedding because they felt that it was during COVID. It wasn't a time to be around people. But yet 2 weeks later, there was a cousin of ours that none of us even knew was a cousin that died. And I get to see pictures of them at the cemetery. And I literally called him out on that. They said, well, we knew him. I'm the baby of the family, and I'm the only one that you've not done anything to go to their wedding or anything, but it's okay. Then when we decided to move here, we kept it a secret from them until about 4 months into being here because I didn't really want to deal with the yelling and screaming of, oh, you're doing something wrong. And then about 5 months into being here, my brother literally called and said, if mom or dad gets sick, it's the male's job in our family to take care of the family. You will need to move home. And I was like, no, I won't. I said, I'm at a good spot in life. I have a husband. I have 3 beautiful dogs, a beautiful apartment. And I'm starting to get around the city. And Columbus really makes me feel like it's Houston because it is so kind of a melting pot.
Oh, sorry. I was trying to use humor.
Well, it kind of is. So I've enjoyed it. And so I didn't really have a scary coming out story like some people do. My mom just kind of said, my mom and dad, when I came positive, I knew that the doctor was going to tell me that because the day that I went into the hospital, my brother came to me that morning and told me in my dream, said, you need to get up, go to the hospital. This is what's going to happen, but I'm going to be with you 100% of the time. April 22nd, 1994, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the doctor came in and said, I have news for you. I said, I already know what you're going to tell me. He said, you do? I said, yeah. And I told him. He said, how do you know that? I said, my brother told me that. He said, your brother? I said, yeah, he died last year from this. And I said, he's going to be with me 100% of the time. And that's why I've never gotten down on myself because it is kind of scary to be positive in the world that we're living in today. But because I know that my brother's always with me, I'm totally fine and I'm good. And I try my best to help so many others get through that because that initial shock of getting tested and getting that positive results is scary compared to back then. You had to wait 2 or 3 weeks to get those results. Today, you get them in an hour, a week or whatever. So things have changed, and I'm very happy that they have changed.
Thanks, Cubby. And I'm glad you're here. So glad you moved to Ohio.
Me too.
Yeah, welcome to Ohio.
Thank you.
Kelly.
So one of my earliest and youngest memories is actually my first memory of being trans. When I was probably about 3.5, 4 years old, my mom caught me walking up and down the stairs in her heels and pantyhose and was appalled and was like, "That's not for boys." And it was always like, I was always interested in like girls' toys rather than boys' toys. None of the like rough house stuff. I'd rather just play house or Barbie or whatever. And it was always, no, you're not supposed to do that. So I kind of gravitated towards Legos because it was gender neutral. And I could get away with it, right? And then when everybody was away, I would play with the toys that I wanted to play with when nobody was watching, kind of thing. So moving forward, I ended up during puberty, like body hair, yuck. The lowering of the voice, I wasn't a fan of. But I specifically remember finding my mom's clothes in the laundry room that she would like throw out her old clothes, and I would pull them out of the trash and put them in between my mattress and my bedspread. Eventually they would be found and thrown out and nobody would say a word, and it was all like, hush, mum's the word, hush, hush. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there was like this binging and purging thing of like, I would have women's clothes and then I wouldn't have anything and then I would. And kind of played the straight, cis, white male, overcompensated frat boy role for a little while. Made it through high school, through college, and finally I got to the point where like I just couldn't do it anymore. I was at the point where I was very suicidal. I was very unhappy. In every relationship I was in, it was very like, there was always like this piece of like dishonesty that like, it was hard to communicate with my partner because I couldn't be fully honest and fully myself with them. And that always ended up the end of the relationship. Mm-hmm. That was the breaking point. So finally after college, I came out, did the,
disconnected.
Lived like half my life as a guy and the other half at home as a girl. So work-life balance kind of thing. And then eventually kind of crossed over and kind of never looked back after that. So 100% all in now.
Right.
Proud of you.
No going back.
Yeah.
Well, great. So thank you. And so the next question, and Cubby, you took us there talking about your early days going to heaven in Houston. But I wonder from the other two, and certainly chime back in, Cubby, what were some of your earliest memories of queer culture? Even maybe things before you came out. What were some of those markers or things that you saw and, you either like distanced yourself because you didn't want to be identified or like wondered, gosh, what would that be like to be able to be in that?
For me in Houston, we used to have different retail stores that sold a lot of the different gay stuff there that always had kind of a back room of sorts that coming out, they were always in business, and all of a sudden they just kind of all started disappearing because they weren't able to, because I guess they were raising rent stuff on them, and they I guess it was, I don't know if it was because of them being LGBT retail businesses or not, but we started losing a lot of those stuff that you couldn't go and just hang out, because some of them they had coffee shops attached to them, and it was actually kind of fun to go hang out. That it wasn't a bar atmosphere. Yeah. Because for me, growing up in the world, that's one of the biggest things for us is you go to the bar and have cocktails. And I remember many a nickel quarter night, and maybe not remembering the night after that. But
sure. Alex, how about you?
Some of my earliest, I think, was like just I think about when Ellen came out on TV, and I was just like, oh my God, somebody kind of like me, like 1996. I remember when the episode, I think that was 96, 97 when the episode aired, and I was just like, oh my God, she totally did a thing, and I was very happy about this.
Yeah. How about you, Kelly?
So when I was growing up, there was basically non-existent media representation of trans women. I remember the first one on media for me was RuPaul, which looking back was just so problematic, right? And like
I love and
that
I
was
hate that for you because I know a little bit about you. So
right. So like it was weird because there was no trans representation whatsoever, and like every like clip that you would get of the trans representation was like the man in the dress on like Law and Order, or like just some blurb in the news about like a cross-dresser or a drag queen or just something like real quick. And there was no real true media representation. And then like RuPaul came out on MTV, and he was out and proud and loud and obnoxious. And it was kind of like, oh, well, I kind of identify with that a little bit, right? And I ended up like, it was during a time in the late 80s, early 90s where like you would have to kind of go into this black hole of like the dark side of the internet where like you end up in like GeoCities, Hot Pages, AOL, ICQ territory.
Or it would flash you to the side.
Yeah. And like that's where I ended up finding all my people was like, oh, there is this whole community that I don't even know about, right? So like I did research for years and years and years, and in college I always had at least one psych class because I was trying to figure out like, well, what's going on here? Because there's got to be some sort of like medical reasoning behind it, right? And come to find out that like the research just wasn't there. So you just keep on going and keep on picking, and and it's still being worked on to this day, but we've came a long, long way in the past 10 years. Yep. So
yeah, nice. So what was your first step into the community? So we got your first glimpses of when you're like, oh, there are people out there. But what was your first step in when you were like, okay, I'm doing this. I've come out to somebody. I'm come out to myself. I'm stepping into it.
For me, I joined Euresis, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization in Houston that we play royalty. We elect our monarchs every year, and it's a big fundraising year. Whoever gets elected as Emperor and Empress decides the charities that we're raising money for. I was fortunate enough to get elected 6 years ago and raise $38,588.22 during the year that we had Harvey hit Houston. So being a part of Euresis really got me out there to fundraise and to get to kind of one-on-one and help see who needs help, and we raise money for them. Every single year we raise money for someone different. So that's where I started, where my first things were. I got involved in an organization that kind of threw me out, and I went and joined different clubs in Houston and ran for a few titles, and I've been doing fundraising for the last 30 years.
Great. Thank you. How about you, Alex?
What was the question one more time?
So what was your first introduction into the LGBTQ community, like when you first stepped out?
I guess there were a couple of times, like coming out kind of after high school, I was kind of forced out. And then I started going when I went to Wright State for a while in Dayton, and I went with a friend to this place called Celebrities. I don't know if it still exists or not, but just went there.
I remember Celebrities. I don't know if it's still there either, but it was a great bar. It's a great bar.
My first was probably my sophomore year in college. We had a couple lesbians that lived across the street from us, and they took me out to the Grapevine. For it was I don't know if it was like drag night or like, so there was this group of like trans sisterhood something or other. I forget what they were called, like Lavender Sisters or something. That met there like once a month. So they took me out because I had mentioned in passing something that was like, hey, let's go out, you know, and all right, sure. So that was my first kind of interaction where I actually met other people in the community. And then I would say the next time would probably be Craigslist personals. I kind of explored that for a little while.
I remember those. And they went non-existent for a little while, and then they kind of popped back up.
Yeah. Oh. They're kind of as like misconnections now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, let's take a step out of the questions that I sent, and let's talk about when the internet happened, when it was born. I think, didn't Al Gore invent the internet? Isn't that what he said? That I think for a lot of folks, myself included, opened myself up to a whole world that I was older, so it didn't open me up that far, but it certainly opened things up for a lot of people who had a dial-up connection. And what were your early days like on the World Wide Web? Were there opportunities there? You look like you got something to say, Alex.
Okay, so I at the time we had a dial-up connection, and I got. Being blind, I used a screen reader. At the time, I used what was called JAWS or JAWS. Job Access with Speech is what it stood for, but it was a screen reader. So I was talking on AOL Instant Messenger, and that's one of the times I got busted, we will say, is I turned the monitor of the computer off because, like, I don't need to see this, and it was still speaking to me, so it was cool. And then my brother walked in and turned the screen on. I turned it off real fast, and of course, I got told on. So that was that, and I was talking to girls. That good stuff.
Yeah,
good stuff.
You mentioned Craigslist.
Yeah, I was all over the internet as both high school and college. And there was a lot of like chat rooms, Craigslist, AOL Instant Messenger, ICQ.
I never understood how to really work that one. I had it, and I was like, yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, ICQ was a little quirky. Like most of my stuff, I would end up almost always either on MySpace or Hot Pages or GeoCities. And I actually had created my own website at the time. I played with a little bit of HTML code. But there was a lot of like, at the time, a lot of opportunity to connect with people outside of my regular like community that just was going through a lot of the same things that I did. And we found a place to meet together and chat that didn't exist prior. And on top of that, I actually learned more about the rest of the community as well. So it was kind of a benefit on both sides, I guess. Ended up learning all about what surgery was available, what hormones were available, how to get them on the black market. At the time, you would have to have a psych diagnosis in order to actually get hormone therapy, and it was almost impossible to actually get that psych diagnosis. So luckily, informed consent is here now.
For now.
Yeah, for now.
Right.
Yeah, like it was a black hole, right?
Yeah.
And like it was something that had not existed previously, and as soon as it did, it was like, oh, this explains some things. If you're going through this too, then I'm definitely not alone. Like, let's keep in contact. kind of thing, and it just became this networking thing that.
I really think that someday researchers will look back and learn that because someone mentioned earlier, like there was a lot of changes very quickly after you mentioned like RuPaul, and then some things started happening. And I credit, with no science behind it, the internet, because we were no longer isolated in our bedroom.
Yeah.
And even to the forging of us as like one community, that I think before it was, gay men connecting with gay men and trans people connecting with trans people and lesbians connecting with lesbians. And I think the internet really helped pull us together because we started talking.
Through chat rooms, through
Absolutely.
messengers, through...
It was dangerous, right?
Yeah. Super empowering too.
Yeah. So with all the problems of the internet, I do think it really helped us move forward. So let's go to maybe this is, I'm not going to key it up. I'm going to just ask the question. So if you ran the alphabet mafia, as I have been told we call the LGBTQ world that we live in, if you ran the mafia, how would you do Pride? I know you have opinions, Kelly.
Yeah, I definitely have opinions on this one. I would focus on the most marginalized of us first and foremost. So like the first example that comes to mind is Black Pride 4, right? Mm-hmm. I think that was done completely wrong. I think hindsight's 2020, and a lot of people that were involved in that situation realize that at this point, probably, ? Luckily, a significant amount of those people are also now no longer in power. So that's I guess progress, but I think that it's hard for me because I feel like I'm a little biased being trans and happening to be in that community that is the most marginalized.
Yeah, that's why I asked you. Because I wanted to hear from different intersections.
I have a hard time with it because I want to like keep away from that bias, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, no, we need to focus on this because like, look at
hardest groups that doesn't get that recognition.
Right. And I mean, look at the laws that they're enacting right now. And there's not a lot of people that are standing up. Yeah. I think that we are in this situation that is just so eerily reminiscent of Nazi Germany. History repeats itself. So if we can focus on those that are the most marginalized, then it reduces oppression for all of us, right? Mm-hmm. There's somebody that I forget what the quote is, but it's like something along the lines of like, your oppression is tied in with my oppression, and every one of us is all we need, kind of thing.
Stronger together.
Yeah.
As far as to run Pride, I would say we need to be a little bit more inclusive with each of us, because each of us has a totally different story to tell. Your story helps my story, and helps his, and helps his. We all are one big happy family, and the minute that we stop fighting with each other and working with each other, we'll have a much better world, because right now we are all being under attack because of everything they're trying to do.
And there's
just
so much
the fact
infighting.
of being that they can say, "I'm sorry, you have a rainbow on you. You can't come in here." It kind of scares me, but it's not going to stop me showing who I am. I am a proud gay man of 51 years. I have a husband of 3 years, and we've been together 21 years this coming September, and I'm very proud of it. And I will always stand up and fight for my brothers and sisters, whether you're black, white, blue, purple, long hair, short hair. The more that we work together and stop focusing on the politics, the business aspect of Pride and the people just wanting to make money off of us, then we'll have a better family together.
Sure. How about you, Alex? What are your thoughts on Pride?
Honestly, I think it needs to be more accessible in an aspect where, like, okay, I'm a blind guy. If I'm going to Pride, I need someone to describe things, because obviously parades are not a thing that, as a blind person, you really can't appreciate that well. And people describing them as great, but I do think descriptions help, but I do think that we all do need to stick together, because you've got this and that person, and like Cubby was saying, like if we I feel like if we don't stick together, we're gonna fall apart. We're gonna fall on our faces.
Very good.
Yeah, I think that there's this piece that, like, we have to remember that it's not pie, right? Like, honestly, ideally, I think that we need to go back to basics and move back towards the resistance and the rebellious piece, rather than having it as a parade. Because this whole rainbow capitalism thing is just like so overdone every year, and everybody just buys into it.
You can go into all kinds of crazy stores now during June, and there's tons and tons of rainbows that a month before that they weren't even there. They're just trying to make money, because they know that each of us want to wear the pride colors, and they're just trying that they know that they're going to make money off of us. So.
Right, especially when the first sign of fascism shows up, like they pull it right off the shelves, right? Like we saw that with Target this year.
Yeah. Before we take a short break, there's been some words that have come up tonight on our podcast, and I thought for the folks listening at home, we could define those. And some of the words are escaping me. Like Alex, I heard you use the word pansexual.
Yes.
And I thought folks at home may not know what that is. Kelly, you used some other words. I was just wondering if we could pull those out. You were talking about emperor and empress, and folks may not understand what that means. And so talk a little bit about some of the terminology you use in your community and world.
Oh, am I going first?
Yeah, I'm going to have you go first, Alex.
All right, so pansexual for me, just like I don't care about somebody's parts. I mean, I just don't. I'm more attracted to the person or people in my case, because I am very polyamorous.
Another word, what's that mean?
That is also, in my case, I have many partners, and I'm very happily with them. So I live in a polycule of 5 in my house, and we have a baby. So polycule.
Yeah, so you just used another word. So I'm going to, the more you talk, I'm going to keep asking you to define it. What's a polycule?
Just a group of polyamorous people. I mean, that's
cool.
what I kind of think of it as anyway.
Love it. Great, thank you.
I think I used a couple of them.
You did, yeah.
So I know I used cross-dresser and drag. So essentially, the trans community falls under this whole umbrella, right? That is like, you got drag queens, which are predominantly gay men that dress in the opposite gender.
Generally for entertainment purposes, right?
Usually for entertainment purposes, yeah. And then cross-dressers, there's a little bit of fetishism there sometimes.
But those are people who
but
are
they
just
still identify as straight.
Yeah, but comfortable wearing clothes.
And then with drag, it kind of gets blurry, because you have drag kings and drag queens, and then like
drag kings are the girls that switch.
Right. And then you got your let's see, transvestites are specifically fetish for sex. Transsexuals are people that identify as the opposite sex and want to transition medically. And then you got NB, which is non-binary, gender non-conforming. They don't fall into the typical binary of like male and female, kind of somewhere in between on that spectrum. What else?
The word cis, which has just been banned on Twitter.
Yeah.
And what's for the folks listening at home? What does cis mean?
So cisgender it basically means that you identify with the sex that you were assigned at birth. So let's say you were born assigned male at birth, which is you have male parts and you identify with that. That would be cisgender.
Okay.
And then intersex is another one where like you might have more than one secondary sexual characteristic. Like let's say you have a penis and breasts, or in some cases a penis and a vagina, or there's all these different kind of like diversified biological aspects of that whole thing too, which honestly I think trans people there's probably a biological component as well, but who knows.
Okay. Cubby, how about you? Any words you want to define for us?
Well, you said the Emperor, and I'm Emperor 33. It basically it's a title in our organization. It's a imaginary kingdom that we play royalty.
Yeah. And
it's kind of like they sit for the year as our pretty figureheads, like our co-presidents for the year. So it's just a imaginary kingdom that kind of gives them power for a year to raise money, and then the very next February they give out that money to the charities.
So it's and please know that I'm not being disrespectful, but it's sort of like a pageant where
it is without the ugly side, because pageants.
Yeah.
Some of the boys and girls that get in pageants can get really cutthroat and can cut up a dress, cut up a tuxedo because they want to get that title. Where with us, we have to throw our name into the hat in October, and we campaign with this, walk around with a sash on our crosses that says "Candidate for Emperor," blah 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 blah, and you come in January. It's an open vote to the city. There's 71 courts all across the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. There's some kind of coronation of some sort going on every single weekend where they're announcing their new monarchs and celebrating the ones that are stepping down. So we give the power to our city to vote us into office once, and then we have to wait a week to get the results. Then at midnight the next Saturday after that, you get sequestered in this little bitty room that you can't hear anything, and the previous monarchs come in, and if there's 3 or 4 people in there and there's only going to be 2 people pulled out of there, if you're not the one that is the one that won, that got the most votes, you get pulled right back into that room. You're the first person to greet the new monarchs, and then they step up. So it's just an imaginary kingdom that gives us power to raise money for charity.
Sure.
Interesting.
I've heard of that.
And we have one here in...
Is there one in Columbus?
In Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, okay. Because I've heard of a similar like arrangement or a culture in New Orleans.
Yes.
And so I wondered when I
the Mardi Gras kings and queens.
Yeah, and when I learned about you, I wondered if this is more of a Southern
and the
thing.
court is their fundraising is more for fun, and then their ball the very next year is to celebrate. Where with the court, we're raising money the entire year, and we give out the next year. And crews in New Orleans usually raise money to put on the ball and have fun. And I'm sure they give out to charity, but for the most part, they raise money to have fun, to put on their ball.
Sure.
And the courts all raise money to give back to various different charities, HIV, breast cancer, you name it. It's going on all across the U.S.
We are a fascinating and complicated community, aren't we?
No doubt.
Yeah. So we are going to take a short break, and we'll be back to finish out with some of our questions. So stay tuned. Being queer is more than just rainbows and unicorns. Isolation, violence, body autonomy, discrimination, substance use, politics, and religion are just some of the stressors impacting our community. Find support and connection that helps you heal. Let's talk. Check out the many support groups you will find at equitashealth.com. Start healing. Welcome back to Stop Stigma, Start Healing. We are in the second half of our episode called Queerdos. I'm here with 3 amazing Queerdos. I want to be included. I want to say 4 amazing Queerdos are here in this space tonight. So thanks for letting me be here with you. Let's talk a little bit about aging in our lovely community. What is that experience like? You, Kelly, during the break, were mentioning a coworker using the phrase gay death.
Yeah, so he just had his 29th birthday, and he said, next year I'll be gay dead. And I was like, what does that mean? because me not being really a part of the gay community, like it's kind of.
It's a hidden joke that once you become 30 in gay terms, you're like over the hill and you're like non-existent anymore. So, because I have a friend of mine that I work with that's 27, and I pick on him. I said, "So you have 3 more years?" He said, "What?" I said, "Yeah, didn't you know? Once you get to 30, you're gone." He said,
Myth.
"Oh,
It's funny because in the trans community, we don't really have that because, like, after you turn 18 and you've already been through hormone processes that you didn't get a chance to like stop, right? Like the rest is just like, well, I went through testosterone poisoning or estrogen poisoning or whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Alex, how about you? You mentioned at the break that you're an old man.
Yeah. So,
I see a few little grays there.
well, I don't.
Oh,
A little bit of blind humor here. People.
Alex got jokes tonight.
But yeah, like I turned 40 in March, and for me it was like, I started hormones in testosterone in January 21st of 2020, right before COVID kind of went. So that's the thing. And with trans men, it's like, oh, you look so young. This little kid, I was at a restaurant, this little kid, this cute, this little kid said, how old are you? And I told him, and I was like, I'm 39. He's like, why are you so little? And I thought that was the greatest thing ever. I was like, because I was born little.
Aww. How about you?
what's great is that like with estrogen, it makes you kind of age a little bit slower than testosterone does. So I have a lot of peers that are like, wait, you're 42? Like you look like you're like maybe 28 or 30. And I'm like, oh, thank you. Right?
Well, go you.
Right.
That's awesome.
But on the flip side of that, like I have broad shoulders. I have a low voice. Like, I guess I'm aging gracefully then.
Yeah. Cubby, how about you?
getting older, it's kind of funny.
You're throwing out 51 a lot.
I am actually very proud of that because so many friends of mine, they're like, yeah, I don't believe you that you're going to be 52 this year. I said, yep. And I literally was showing them my ID and they're like, holy crap. I said, maybe it's just because I'm Hispanic. Sometimes some Hispanics tend to really hold our age a little bit better. But I've been known to be out in the sun, so you would think that I would look a little older, but I don't, and I don't even act it. So
I feel like for all of ours, like in the LGBT community as a whole, I think that like there's a certain aspect of like this is a badge of honor, you know. Like, hey, I've been through some shit because the 80s and 90s weren't kind to us, right? And really the 2000s.
Yeah, when I turned 50, a friend of mine said, "Oh, you're now an elder status." I said,
"Right,
I'm good with that. I'm good with that because I've been through some things, so I'm okay with being called an elder."
Yeah. I mean, being 72, like I feel still pretty youthful.
What?
Right? No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
I was waiting
like,
for someone to like.
It's the long hair.
It's the long hair. No.
I was like, whoa.
53.
I was like, wait.
I'm just German and Irish, so I look like I'm 72. I don't get to take hormones. I'm not Latin. I don't get any of those extra special things to make me look old, make me look young. I just am weathering.
It's your heart that helps you.
It's my heart.
You're carrying heart.
I mean, there you go. Like,
I'll take a young heart. So let's talk a little bit about healthcare. What's healthcare like?
I feel like for some of us, we're lucky. Others of us are not. Like, I got lucky to be on T right away. I mean, but some people who are people of color, they don't get so lucky all the time because they're more marginalized and people don't want to help necessily.
So you feel pretty good about your healthcare?
I feel
coverage?
like I'm privileged. I feel privileged, because I was able to do what I needed right away.
Yeah. How about you too?
See, and I have to agree. I have to feel the same way because being positive in Texas, there's so many different aspects of life that you can go through the Mantra Center and and get help with your health, with your teeth. And in Texas and Houston, every 2 years I would get a free pair of glasses through my doctor, because that was one of the things that being positive gave me. Coming here, we don't get the glasses here, but I've been able to go see the dentist. I have a really awesome doctor. So being positive, for me, I feel that there's some things that I'm very proud that I'm able to get. Like my husband isn't as negative, and there's some things that he would really like to get done, but because his insurance doesn't take care of it, he kind of just has to deal with it, and we've worked around it. So yeah, for being healthcare is for me, I'm in a good place because I'm taken care of.
But your husband, just to be clear, doesn't have the benefits that you do.
Correct.
And Kelly, you have some opinions about healthcare. I know this.
I have a lot of opinions about healthcare. I think the best word to describe it is minefield. I have this unique perspective of working in the healthcare field and being kind of engrossed in it as both a trans person and somebody who has chronic illness with my diabetic situation. Plus, I come from poverty in my background as well. So, like, I know all about Medicaid. I am familiar with the differences between Medicaid and employer insurance and financial assistance and HCAP and hospital assistance. And it's just a minefield. It's hard to navigate. One company will say one thing and then another company will say another thing. And then you have to get your pre-authorizations and like it just depends on who.
Hospital,
right?
Some will take it and some will not, and some will only take portions of it.
Right, or who you're communicating on the other line for customer service for your insurance provider. It even matters with that. So it's just a minefield, and I think that we have come a substantial way, especially in the LGBT community, with the quality of care and creating like Equitas Health is doing a great job as best they can. Ohio Health is moving the needle forward. Boston Fenway Health is amazing. San Francisco, they have a huge trans clinic there that is amazing. So we're moving at least the needle a little bit, and like progress, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, always. So hopefully we'll get there. I'm crossing my fingers for Medicare for all. I would love to have kind of the same program as Canada has, but
without moving to Canada.
Yeah, without moving to Canada, because I don't like being cold.
It's cold there. It's cold.
Yeah, so I think we have a long way to go. At least the
door's open. You just got to keep it open.
Yeah,
sure.
The W path has been improved this recent year, so that's been a needle movement.
Good.
So
another one of those words. WPATH.
WPATH is World Professional Association of Transgender Health.
Very good. Thank you. And as I look out the window behind you and I see the State House, insurance is making some changes because we have great politicians in our state who are really fighting for our rights, right? Alex? Kelly?
Yep. Fighting for
Cubby?
our rights.
Yep.
Maybe our
Total
religious rights.
Yeah, total tongue in cheek. So let's talk for a minute about how scary things are in the state of Ohio right now. And I know you came from Texas and you'd lived in Florida. Both of you had lived in Florida. So it's like, it's not just Ohio, but this is essentially an Ohio-based podcast. And so it's pretty scary right now.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's very important to go vote. Very important to call your legislators.
Be vocal.
Yeah, be vocal. Be as loud as you can, and tell everybody to be as loud as they can. We need all the support that we can possibly get. I think that it's really, really important to have co-conspirators right now.
Mm-hmm.
We got to get people in office that are really going to stand behind us, and all across the U.S. we got to really get the people that are against us out and and always make sure that we vote. It's a simple little thing. Just go in, spend a little 20-minute time frame. Sometimes if it's a long line, hey, do it because if your life is going to depend on it. And right now, our lives really do depend on these votes, and we gotta stand together, and we gotta get the people that are against us out of office, so that they can stop all this hate against us and move forward. We don't want to go back to the Nazi time frame where, because you're gay, that you're going to start rounding you up and putting you in buildings and secluding us away from anything. And unfortunately, the way that things are going right now, that's not that far away from happening, because it is really scary right now that one vote the wrong way and it could go really nasty.
I mean, they're trying to corrupt the system that way they have the control right now too. So.
Yeah. So last question, which is really much more of a statement. So I invited you all out here tonight, and I've asked you a lot of questions. I want to make sure that I give you time with a hot mic to say some of the things that you wanted to say. And so, Alex, can I put you on the spot first?
Sure, I'll let you do it.
Okay.
I don't know. This has been a great time, and I think people just need to be able to be themselves, whatever that looks like for them. Be you.
Very good.
And be happy about it.
Good deal. Cubby, how about you?
I will again say the phrase "stronger together." We are stronger together. Never stop being yourself. Be the most authentic self that you are, because that's the only person that we can count on. And if we go back into the closet, it's defeating the purpose. And wear your rainbows. Do whatever makes your heart feel good, and be proud of who you are.
Great, Kelly.
I would say support yourself and support each other. Kind of along the same lines. I feel like there's a lot of infighting within all of these marginalized communities, whether you're LGBT. Yeah, and it's all just stupid shit, right? Yeah. Where, like, when it comes to the end of the day, like, we're all in this together, and, like, we have way more power as let's call it a bargaining unit, right? I'm union rep. So we've got way more power in numbers, and if we are not fighting against each other and we're fighting against the actual enemy, then we're going to win.
Done. Yeah.
So, like, if we can get the people of color, all the marginalized communities, handicapped, disabled, LGBT, QIA plus, Alphabet Mafia, everybody that is marginalized, oppressed, let's get together, let's get on the same page, and let's kick some ass, right?
Love it. And that is a great place to stop. So as Queerdos, we're going to go out and we're going to kick some ass. I love that. So thank you, Kelly, Cubby, Alex, for being here with us on this special episode called Queerdo. I'm going to keep saying it. And please tune in for our next episode. Thank you and good night.